This is one of the newest thin and light laptops from Asus. It's called the VivoBook 14 Flip. Now, this form factor by itself isn't anything new. We've seen this already from the likes of the Lenovo Yoga series. But what is relatively new is the platform that this thing uses. This is powered by the new Intel Core Ultra Series 2 processors, which are fairly new. They came out like in mid 2025, so we are right around the same time. It's one of those all in one platforms where everything is integrated, including the RAM. And yeah, that means you cannot upgrade the RAM later on by adding an extension stick. This thing doesn't even have a RAM extension slot, so you'll pretty much have to select the right configuration when you're buying the laptop. I know it kind of sucks in terms of upgradability, but it will help with efficiency a little bit. We'll talk about that in a second. I've been using this thing for the last 2 weeks or so, and here are my experiences divided in pros and cons. Let's start with the good stuff, the pros. The build quality on this is pretty good. It puts this among the nicer laptops I've seen so far, especially around the hinge, which is perhaps the most rigorously used mechanical component of a laptop. And because this is a 360-degree design, you'll be flipping it back and forth a lot throughout the day. Pause. This thing easily passes the one hand opening test. In case you don't know, if you can open your laptop with just one hand like this without the whole thing flipping over, it means the hinges are well balanced. It usually indicates a good quality build and design overall. The keyboard feels fine, decent key travel. I mean, it's on par with any other laptop you will find in this price. The trackpad is nice, but I wish it was a little bit taller, like ever so slightly taller. But then again, this is a 2-in-1 design and has a nice touchscreen, so I suppose it's fine. And coming to that screen, that's another plus point of this device. It's a pretty nice OLED panel. And you'll get all the benefits of an OLED panel like those inky blacks and vibrant colors. But I do wish this was slightly higher resolution. I mean, this thing's 1080p, and that's one of the first things I noticed when I first booted this thing up. I was holding it about 2 feet away from my face in a tablet-like orientation, and I could tell that it's a lower resolution screen in general. Maybe it's because, nowadays all of our phones and laptops and everything have at least 1440p, so it's been a while since I looked at a 1080p screen this close. But when you keep it at least 3 or 4 foot away from your face in a laptop orientation, it's fine. I'm just pointing it out because you might use this as a tablet every now and then. Now, while the text and UI isn't the sharpest on this 1080p panel, watching media has been great. This wide gamut OLED panel combined with pretty good speakers makes for a very good media consumption experience. I have no complaints. Now, while the touchscreen is pretty convenient, I found that the experience of using a touchscreen on a Windows-based device is still not that consistent. I mean, some UI elements still don't recognize a touch input. They require either a trackpad or a mouse scroll wheel. And that's entirely Windows' fault. It's not something Asus can fix. Again, I'm just letting you know that it's not going to be a seamless experience throughout the OS. Because, well, Windows 11 isn't exactly made to be a touch-first OS. I mean, individual apps like the browser or Photoshop or something, they work great, but the UI, the OS in general, isn't always intuitive in touch mode. Even in 2025, Windows is still, well, Windows, which is to say extremely inconsistent and lacks polish, even among the most high-end or premium type machines. And by that, I think I somehow answered this question some people have, like why do people buy tablets, which are like a middle ground between a phone and a laptop? Well, this is pretty much why. Windows doesn't really behave well on a touchscreen interface, so if you want a large screen for basic multimedia and some browser-based tasks, you're better off buying an Android tablet or a phone for most users. Now, there is an exception where this type of laptop can be useful. That is when if your application particularly runs well on a Windows-based machine. Like if you run a very specific CAD software or some sort of an illustrating tool that only runs on Windows and you need it to run on Windows so you can kind of share it with your coworkers and stuff, then yeah, this type of laptop makes a lot of sense. It even comes with this stylus pen, which helps you do some additional work, but there are some downsides with this. We'll get to that in the cons section, but let's continue with the pros. Another thing that I like in general is the performance. I initially ran a few benchmarks like Cinebench and Geekbench, and it scored reasonably well. You can see that in terms of theoretical scores at least, it's approaching a Core i9 from a few years ago. And as far as I remember, that used to be a desktop chip which consumed like 95 watts of power. So if this thing can come close to it with its 35 watt processor, that's pretty amazing. Not just for this machine, but for technology in general. I mean, we are getting closer to a desktop grade performance from a few years ago in a laptop form with high efficiency. And it's not just about performance, this thing doesn't heat up that much at all. For the most part during my testing, it never went above say 2 degrees of the room temperature, which means you can't even really feel it with your hands. And only after I kept spamming Cinebench for like 20 minutes, this thing reached some high 30s, which is still acceptable in my opinion. It wasn't uncomfortably hot, it was just kind of warm if you're feeling it, but if you're just using the thing, you won't even notice. Even the fan speed is kept well under control, it's pretty quiet. I can only hear it when I'm like really close to it. If I'm just using it like a normal laptop, it's pretty much silent, it's gone. I mean, that's a far cry from my usual experience with my gaming laptop. So yeah, that's a W for sure. I'm using a version with the Core Ultra 7, which is a slightly higher end model, and it even has an AI chip built in. So that gives it some extra features which can run on device even without internet. I mean, it can do a few things, but the coolest one I found was that the live translation app. I mean, Windows has a live captioning app built in pretty much on all laptops, but this thing has a translation as well. So it can detect any audio playing on this device and convert that to a language of your choice, say English in this case. And again, it happens natively on device. It just uses the AI chip in this processor, doesn't need internet. That's pretty cool, right? There's also the image generation aspect, which is built into the MS Paint. I mean, you do need internet for the first part once the prompt is set, and then it can basically copy whatever you're drawing. That can be done offline. But since it partially uses internet, I'm not fully considering it as a dedicated feature. But after the first part, it mostly runs natively. And the final great thing about this that I really liked is the battery life. You probably expected that given this is an integrated chip machine. The battery on this is great. A single charge basically lasts me an entire day, which is like 8 to 9 hours of active use with some sleep modes in between. And the standby is really great too. I actually kept this closed for a long time and it basically sips battery very slowly, which is actually nice. It's one of those machines where you can get some actual work done throughout the day with just one charge, and this 65-watt charger that it comes with, it recharges this thing just over an hour, so you're good to go for the whole day. So that makes this machine a pretty good choice for like university or office type users, especially for creative tasks. So to summarize the pros, this thing has good build, a nice display, pretty decent performance, some fancy AI things, and really good battery life. What's the catch? I mean, it sounds too good to be true. Well, yeah, there are some cons. Let's get to them now. The first con is, while I said the build quality is in general pretty good, it's inconsistent. Like for instance, the hinges and the top section of the lid is actually nice, but the trackpad area is kind of a little bit wonky and loose. I mean, this thing isn't fully properly seated. Now it could be because this is a review unit that I got and maybe the Incredible Hulk was using this before me. But hey, it shouldn't dislocate itself so easily unless it was catastrophically dropped or something. And speaking of dropping, even this S Pen or this stylus pen isn't really particularly durable. Like as soon as I was trying to replace the tip here, I noticed that this front section has been cracked. I don't think I did that. Maybe some previous user dropped it accidentally. But hey, things happen, right? How many times have you accidentally dropped a regular pen or pencil on the ground? It happens. So these things should be at least durable enough to handle day-to-day wear and tear like that. I mean, that's what I mean. Like part of this machine feels really well made, high quality, and other parts feel like lacking in quality. It's very inconsistent. I didn't expect that from this machine, mainly because it's not exactly a super budget-friendly device. And that's another one of my complaints with this at the moment, or a con you could say, is that it's slightly higher priced. Even the entry-level model is priced higher than I would like, and I'm guessing it's because of the Core Ultra series chips being relatively new. They are not as widely used, so maybe they are not that affordable yet. I'm just assuming. As I've already said, there are a lot of things I like about this, but there has to be a balanced approach with pros and cons. So these are the cons. And a third thing that I don't like about this, which is actually a pretty important point, is the graphical performance. I think it was pretty obvious that this thing doesn't have a dedicated GPU, so graphics will not be a strong suit of this, particularly in like gaming and stuff. I'm not even talking about that. I'm not a gamer, I don't play any games, and I don't expect a device like this to do well. But I am talking about video editing, which is a relatively CPU intensive task. Now yes, GPUs do help a lot. Graphics acceleration is used in most video editing apps, but I didn't realize how important it was until I ran Premiere Pro on this and loaded up a 4K timeline. This thing didn't do very well. It didn't really feel smooth scrolling through the timeline even at 1/8 the playback resolution. That wasn't really that good. I expected the Core Ultra 7 to do a bit better. I mean, even with other editing apps like CapCut for example, just loading one 4K clip in the timeline already sent the CPU to 100%. That's not great. So this thing cannot be an editing PC. If you're expecting this to be like a super lightweight touchscreen based editing machine, nah. You're still better off buying a gaming oriented laptop with a powerful CPU and a dedicated GPU to do that. You may have to sacrifice a bit of battery life, but you will get the necessary performance to do that task. So, in conclusion, after all that yapping, what is this device good for, or who is this for? If you don't use graphics heavy apps like 4K video editing or gaming and stuff, and you want this 2-in-1 form factor for sketching and stuff on a Windows based platform where you don't have to worry about the battery life lasting all day, then this is it. It has everything you need: multiple ways of using it, a good touchscreen, nice battery, very good performance for day to day use. Yeah, this checks all the boxes. And while this is not going to replace my main workstation because I need to be able to edit these 4K videos, it can definitely be a handy second laptop where I don't have to worry about battery life and still get a lot of work done. Minus the video editing, of course. Well, that about does it for my review of this Asus VivoBook 14 Flip. While I'm not necessarily the target customer for this, I can definitely see a lot of people appreciating this type of form. But can you justify that price? Well, that's up to you. I would buy a machine with heavy GPU performance because that's what I need for my work. These are subjective devices. There is no one size fits all. That's what she said. If this sounds interesting, I'll leave a link in the description. You can check it out and let me know if you have any questions or if I missed anything.